Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, it's your favorite history teacher back at you again with another historical video. Today, we're going to be talking about the countries in Asia, particularly Japan, China, or Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Korea. Some places we have not discussed yet. So, let me shut up and let's start going. This is the last section in chapter 15. We have one more video after this, and that will culminate unit 8. But this is our chapter 15, lesson 3, the Asian Rim. So the rim is like the edge. We've talked about China. We talked about Vietnam. So while those are Southeast and East Asia, now we're talking about the Asian Rim. That was your warm up. Okay, objectives. We're going to make generalizations about how successful the economies of South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong. We're going to draw a conclusion about how Japan emerged as an industrial power after World War II and describe China's claims on Taiwan that contribute to Taiwan's uncertain future. So, transforming miracles. So, in August 1945, Japan was in ruins and a foreign army, the United States, occupied its land. A mere 50 years later, Japan emerged as the second greatest industrial power in the world. From 1945 to 1952, Japan was occupied by Allied military forces under the command of U.S. General Douglas MacArthur. Under his firm direction, Japanese society was remodeled along Western lines. They created a new constitution renouncing war as a national policy. Japan agreed to maintain armed forces sufficient for only self defense. Also, the constitution established a parliamentary system and reduced the power of the emperor, who was forced to announce he was not God. And it guaranteed basic rights and gave women the right to vote. On September 8, 1951, a peace treaty restored Japanese independence. Since then, Japan has emerged as an economic giant. The country's dramatic recovery from the war has been described as the Japanese miracle. But how did this miracle occur? That's General MacArthur. That's a graph. All right, hashtag followers. So, modeled on the U.S. Constitution, Japan's new constitution guaranteed basic civil and political rights, and called for universal suffrage, meaning all people can vote, and a balance of power among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of the government. Huh, sounds a lot like us. However, it retained some of Japan's 19th century political system under the Meiji. An example involves the distribution of political power. Japan had a multi party system with two major political parties, the Liberal Democrats and the Socialists. In practice, however, the Liberal Democrats had dominated the government. A few party leaders decided key issues such as who should be the prime minister was one of them. The central government plays an active role in the economy, established price and wage policies, and subsidized vital industries. The government role is widely accepted in Japan. It is indeed cited as the key reason for the efficiency of Japanese industry and the emergence of Japan as an industrial giant. People don't question it. Japan's economic system has been described as called state capitalism because while they still have some form of capitalism, it's run by the state, which is kind of socialist. But see, there's all these mixes. That's them signing the Japanese Constitution. I believe this is the Liberal Democrats over here, and this is the insignia for the socialists on the right. Occupied Japan. So during the occupation of Japan, Allied officials had planned to dismantle the business conglomerations known as the Zaibatsu. But with the Cold War, this policy was scaled back. Only the 19 largest companies were affected. Also, this policy did not keep companies from forming ties with each other, which basically gave another rise to a new Zaibatsu system. The Occupation Administration had more success with its land reform program, however. Half the population, Zaibatsu is on your final, BT dubs. The Occupation Administration, I already said that. Half the population lived on farms, and half of all farmers were tenants of large landowners. So, a quarter. Under the reform program, lands were sold on easy credit terms to the tenants, and this reform program created a strong class of independent farmers. At the end of Allied occupation in 1952, the Japanese gross national product was one third of that of Great Britain or France. In the 1980s, it was larger than the both combined. After several decades of impressive growth, Japan was considered a model of economic success. Good for you, Japan. You know, coming from a country that, dismantled and ruined your way of life following World War II, they did it the right way. This is how a Zaibatsu works. And it's like a trust in American history. It's almost like a trust. And this is a picture of the three richest or Zaibatsus that are around today. So it hasn't gone away. Um, and this is just another image, but some of the Zaibatsus in modern day, Mitsubishi, Mazda, Sapporo, Honda. I don't know this one. Mitsui, Nippon, Nikon, Kawasaki. A conglomerate is a corporation made up of several different independent businesses. So it's like a trust. Here's some tenant farmers. I looked up a land reform policy, and this is the image I got. All right, so some shifts. During the occupation, Allied planners tried to eliminate the aggressiveness that had been part of Japanese behavior, or as what those people perceived as aggressive. A new educational system stressed individualism and removed references to patriotism and loyalty to the emperor. Efforts to remake Japanese behavior through laws were only partly successful. Many characteristics of traditional society still persist today. Emphasis on the work ethic remained strong, and the tradition of hard work is stressed in the educational system. Women's roles were another example of difficulty of social change. After the war, women gained the right to vote and were encouraged to enter politics. However, the subordinate role of women has not been eliminated. Women are legally protected against discrimination in employment, yet very few have reached senior levels in business, education, or politics. Most women are employed in retail or service occupations, and their average salary is only 60% of that of men. Eek. So here's some Japanese schools. Rawr. All right, sometimes called the Asian tigers, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong have imitated Japan in creating successful industrial societies. Australia and New Zealand to the south of and east of Asia now have a closer trade relations with their Asian neighbors. In 1953, the Republic of Korea, South Korea, was under dictatorial president Syngman Rhee. Rhee ruled harshly, and in the spring of 1960, demonstrations broke out in Seoul, and Rhee was forced to retire. A coup d'etat put General Park Chung-hee in power, and 2 years later, Park was elected president and began to strengthen the South Korean economy. South Korea gradually emerged as a major industrial power in East Asia, especially in the developments of chemicals, textiles, shipbuilding, and automobile production. South Korea was slow to develop a fully democratic government, however. Park ruled by autocratic means and suppressed protests. However, after assassination, Democratic elections were restored by the early 1990s. So that's Syngman Rhee and General Douglas MacArthur. These are those protests, and that's Hung, Park Hung Chi, Park Chung Hee, Park Chung Hee. And then this is how he gets assassinated. He uh he gets arrested. I looked this up. He gets arrested and then is like shot. I think this I want to say this is him because this guy's holding a gun, right? You could look up the many different pictures. I mean, there are many. To China's question mark? Defeated by the communists, Chiang Kai-shek and his followers established their capital at Taipei on the island of Taiwan, aka Formosa. Chiang Kai-shek and it said the Republic of China was the legitimate government of all Chinese people. Uh-uh. The communist government of the mainland claimed to rule all of China. With protection of American military forces, Taiwan focused on economic growth and had no worries about a communist invasion. There was always threats, but with America supporting a non-communist government in China, the Chinese did not want to set off World War III. Making good use of their foreign aid and the efforts of its people, the Republic of China built a modern industrialized society. A land reform program which put the farmland in the hands of peasants doubled their food production. Local manufacturing and commerce also expanded. But prosperity did not at first lead to democracy. Chiang Kai-shek ruled by decree and did not allow new political parties to form. After his death in 1975, however, the Republic of China slowly moved toward a more representative form of government. So again, this is how purple is the People's Republic of China. All right. Taiwan is this little itty bitty island. And then these littlest islands. All right. So not necessarily a force to be reckoned with when you got the whole of China going against Taipei. All right. Taiwan. Rich. All right. Singapore, once a British colony and briefly a part of the state of Malaysia, is now an independent state. Under their leadership of Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore developed a free market economy based on banking, shipbuilding, oil refineries, and electronics. The authoritarian political system created a stable environment for economic growth, but its citizens began to demand more political freedoms. Like Singapore, Hong Kong also became an industrial powerhouse with high standards of living. Having ruled Hong Kong for more than 150 years, Great Britain returned the control of Hong Kong to mainland China in 1957. In 1997, China, in turn, promised that for the next 50 years, Hong Kong would enjoy a high degree of economic freedom under a capitalist system because China is communist. Well, was communist at this time, is still, they're like a mix, they're like a hybrid. So 50 years from 1997 would be what, 1947? So we'll see what happens in 20 some odd years. And this is where Singapore is, if you have no idea. Okay. That's where Singapore is. And there's a more close up version. That's Lee Kuan Yew. Died in 2015. And then you have Hong Kong. Right there. This is Hong Kong. How China became capitalist. All right. So, very short, not necessarily super difficult. And yeah, that concludes talking about some parts in Asia following the Cold War. And so your homework is to do page 573, 2 through 4. Page 573, 2 through 4. All right. Hopefully you guys did enjoy that. I know it was very, very short, sweet, and to the point. All right. If you guys did enjoy that, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.